Something a little bit different here with us at Bridgend Van Centre today. Not the usual type of video that we do on our channel, but something I'm really excited to show you. And we've just managed to get our hands on one of the brand new shape Ford Transit Custom Limiteds. And I wanted to put a side-by-side comparison to the previous shape. Admittedly, this has got a full kit on it and this one hasn't yet. But I just wanted to show you some of the differences, some of my initial first impressions. We've got quite a bit of experience with these. We've sold literally hundreds of these vans, so we're quite familiar with them, some of their common faults. We've got our own workshop, all the rest of it, so we're quite familiar with these. And I just wanted to give you my sort of first impressions, having a look around the van, as I say, show you a few comparisons and things like that as well. First thing I wanted to note is the size. So when you look at the two vans here next to each other, it must be said, I mean, from photos initially, I thought that this van was going to be a lot smaller than this size. Maybe the size of, say, a Citroen Dispatch or, the new shape Vauxhall Vivaro. But it must be said, hopefully you can see that in the camera there. But they are more similar than I had first anticipated. In the back, it is slightly smaller, however. So if we open up the rear doors here, ignore the condition, because this hasn't, of course, been cleaned or anything yet. But it is slightly smaller in the back here. This aperture in the back, it's only a centimetre or two here or there from the sides and the roof, but it is slightly smaller. And to me, there is a bit of a curvature here where the sides sort of come in on the sides as well. So it's something to note, but the difference is quite minor. Inside the cab then, in terms of size in here, very similar, I would say, in terms of feel. Of course, comes as a 3-seater variant, as this is what most of them you're going to see are going to be like this, as a 3-seater. Does still have the armrest. I thought that was tucked away, but it's a slightly smaller armrest, but that is still there. But in terms of size in the cab here, I would say very comparable to the previous shape. Maybe a touch smaller, but that is splitting hairs. The next thing I wanted to come on to are the looks. Of course, the most striking thing, looking at the front of these two vans here side by side, and I just wanted to touch on my personal thoughts on the looks of the van. Now, the first thing to note, I would say, is probably quite an obvious statement, but the van does look and feel a lot more modern than the previous shape. So I do think a lot of the design language around the front, I think, is a lot more modern. Same when it goes to the rear as well. Of course, you can almost, take this one with a pinch of salt because it hasn't got a full kit. The wheels, of course, are not standard. But in terms of the shell of the van, these are the things that we can immediately compare. And it is a more modern looking van. I think the rear lights are a bit more modern. And I say, generally the shape, a more modern looking van. That's of course an obvious statement, but it's not a van, being up close and personal to it, it's not something that I'm repulsed by. I do really think that come 6-12 months from now, I think we'll be looking at these and thinking that it is a good looking van, especially when kits start going on them. And we all know how much these vans are transformed with a kit on it like that. I think it's a huge transformation from just a standard limited, and I think when we start getting a good kit on these, it's going to make a massive difference. I think it's going to be a very good looking van. So a few changes on the van. Lights at the front of the van, quite a big change here at the front. So these come now with this Ford LED system, and the LED daytime running light is along the top there. I thought initially from photos, this chrome strip, I actually thought that was a light bar going all the way across. I think that might be an option, an optional extra on some of the models, but just on your standard limited, you're going to get an LED daytime running light there. But LED headlights, which I haven't tested them at night, but I think they're going to be a big improvement on the previous shape. Of course, daytime running light on the old one goes right the way around the outside, and that is really quite a defining feature of the front of the van. I probably prefer the daytime running light on the old van, but I think upgraded headlights is going to be a welcomed change. Something else which has changed, front fog lights. Where are they? Nothing on the front of this van. Of course, on the previous van, you had the front fog lights down below here. These also act as cornering lights on the previous shape. So as you turn a corner, the appropriate light down below will illuminate. Let's say if you're moving around in tight spaces at night, it does make a difference, I think. So, but that's a difference. Whether it's something that you'd notice, whether it's going to make any difference whatsoever, of course, time will tell. But as I say, in terms of a difference, certainly worth noting between the two. Probably the biggest change for me is the tech inside the van. So immediately when we jump in here, there's nowhere to put your key. It is keyless start. So foot on the clutch, I always move foot on the clutch, foot on the brake. And then you have got your start-stop button just there. And then you are greeted with these two screens in front of you. So first thing is you have got your digital dashboard. This is something that we're used to seeing on, you know, very high-end transporters, which, you know, Californias, the newest Californias will come with that, which is a nice feature. But customs, it's not something that we're used to seeing. And that is when you step into the old shape, it is something that strikes you, is having this nice screen in front of you here. Again, it just gives that more modern feel. And then to the left, this much bigger screen here, of course, ignore this has still got the protective tape on it. This van's got 180 miles on it, but a much bigger screen over here to the left-hand side, again, feels a lot more modern. Of course, usual things, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm assuming they are going to be wireless, which you would expect on the newest vans now. Another change is, of course, the steering wheel. You know, you may see that as a minor thing, but this is one of your major points of contact with the van when you're driving, and it is completely different from the previous model. The shape, it is now a much more square shape. I must say, I quite like it. Again, I've used this word numerous times in this video already, but it feels modern. The buttons on here are very, very familiar. They're basically exactly the same as on the previous model, but just that shape difference, I quite like it. In terms of steering sort of feel or steering weight, very light. When you're driving this van on the road, it does feel very light in your hands, and that is a really nice way of disguising the weight and the size of a vehicle like this. Makes it very easy to drive, very comfortable to drive. So after talking about some of the changes between these two vans, I want to talk about a few things which I'm not quite sure of. Something that, is it going to grow on me? I'm not sure, but these are a few things that I'm not sure of on the new Shape Custom. First one is, where's the thigh adjustment gone? On the previous Shape vans, you've got your height adjustment. This dial here, or in a similar position on the old Shape Customs, this would be your thigh adjustment. So that would give you a sort of a tilt to the seat. It could get the vehicle, or the seat should I say, into a really nice comfortable position. This is now your lumbar support. You had lumbar support on the old van, so you've just sort of lost one of the functionalities there on the seat. Again, is that going to make a difference? Do people really play around with that thigh adjustment that much? I would. If when I'm driving them, I like to get that into just the right position, and that is quite an easy place there to operate your lumbar support. On the old vans, it was a bit more awkward. I'm not sure. Why have they got rid of that? The handbrake. On the new Shape, it is now an electric handbrake. So, these are only first impressions, but every time I've jumped in the van so far, I do find myself reaching down here to the left-hand side to grab the handbrake. I'm sure you would get used to that the more that you drive it. Is something I'm not quite sure about. Is that just sort of overcomplicating something that doesn't need to be complicated? This is a van. I'm not too sure about that. You need to put your foot on the, in this case, foot on the clutch and the brake, push that down, and then you'll feel the brake pedal sort of come back towards you slightly, and you will hear the electronic handbrake disengage. And then the same goes when you come to a stop, do that, and then it comes on. I'm sure, in theory, it works pretty well, but I'm not sure. For me, is there anything wrong with just an old-fashioned handbrake down there? Something else inside the cab, which again, I'm not quite sure on just yet, and that is the controls on the screen. Again, on the previous model, you had dials here to adjust your heater temperature, the air conditioning, fan speed, all the rest of it. They have moved all of that now onto the screen down here. Again, I don't know about you. For me, I just don't think there's anything wrong with a dial to control your fan speed. If you're driving along, is it a bit more difficult to quickly try and find, where are my heated seats? Oh, they're over here. These sliders and things, they are nice, but you need to be really, in my opinion, stopped and concentrating on these to be able to operate those properly. Maybe time will tell. Maybe I'm just a bit old-fashioned there. I'm not sure. A couple of final things here then, which again, I'm not quite sure on just yet on the new Custom. I don't want to feel like I'm bashing this van, and I will come on to a bit of a summary in just a second, but I just want to be completely honest, as we always are here, with my initial thoughts. This here, why is that not housed in a trim? On the previous Shape, there is a trim here, so these rear number plate lights are hidden. I don't know, the shape of the door is there. Why is there not a sort of a color-coded piece here to house those lights, and in this case, the rear camera? They've also, just a note on that as well, on the later model Transit Customs, you'd have an extra camera up here, which did divide opinions because of the look of it, but in terms of actually using it day to day, it was very nice having that rear view mirror camera up there. But I can see they've ditched that on this, and now you've just got the reversing camera down there. And then the final thing, which I'm not quite sure on. It's a couple of things relating to the rear door. The rear door here, on all the other handles on the van, it is a handle. You pull the handle and open the door, as you would expect. On the rear door, it's not. There is a button in here to open the door. It doesn't move. There's just a button inside there. I don't know why. If there's anyone out there watching this who's got the answer, by all means, let me know. But I can't quite understand why that isn't just a normal handle there and has been replaced for a button. But then something else in the back of here, which again I'm not quite sure on. You probably will have seen this online, but there's no door stay. So on the previous model, again, there was that big yellow arm there. How many times have I said that in the video? You pull on the yellow arm, that allows you to open the door right out to its 180-degree position, or you can leave it locked in place. And that door wasn't going anywhere because there was a physical arm holding it in place. This now has been changed for a sort of a multi-stage hinge so that it will stay in place there. This isn't a new thing on a van. This is on other models, but it's just a change. And again, I'm not quite sure. On a really windy day, is that just going to be blowing shut? It doesn't take a huge amount of force to be able to get it past that stage there. And in the back, again, buttons here to open the door. You know, previous model, there was a handle there. On this now, there's a button to open the door. I'm not sure. In practice, is that a more modern, nicer way of doing things? Or again, is it just overcomplicating it for the sake of trying to feel like it's moving forward? But it's not all bad. As I say, I don't want to feel like I'm absolutely bashing this van. I just want to be completely honest and show you things that I'm a bit unsure of at the moment. There are a number of things which I do really like about this van. One, again, maybe divisive, maybe controversial. I do like the way it looks. And I think, I do think it looks modern. I think once there's a kit on this van has actually been lowered in our workshop. That's how we've came to get hold of this van. So thank you very much to the owners for allowing us to make this video. But this one has been lowered. I think it probably needs that to sit nicely, and I think that sits a lot better there. Of course, there's a choice of different wheels, which are now on a 6-stud as opposed to a 5-stud on the previous model. But I do like the way it looks, so that is a big plus for me. And I think as time goes on, you get a kit on it, and you know what it's like with the new model. They do grow on you. I think these could, in time, start to make these look a little bit dated in years to come. So that is something I really do like with it, is the way that it looks. As I touched on a bit earlier with things that have changed on the van, again, something I really like is the tech in here. The screens do make this feel a lot more modern. Again, I'm using that word all the time, but it does make it feel that way. Having this big screen here makes it feel a lot more like a luxury car. And when you jump back in the old shape, having that smaller screen there in the center, again, just dates it a little bit. And then the final thing, which I really like with this van, or the new shape van, is the way that it drives. That lighter steering, as they've obviously thought a lot about, feel of the van, the way that it handles the bumps. Those seats are very, very comfortable. It drives very well. It's the sort of van that you feel like you could set off from here in South Wales and drive up to Scotland absolutely with no problem at all. So I do really like the way that it drives. So again, I don't want to sound like I'm bashing the van. There's a few things that I don't know. Maybe will grow on me. Maybe it will just bug me forever. Overall, I do think it's a nice step forward. It's going to be interesting to try some of the other engine options. This is the 136. This is really the sort of the standard limited that you're going to see on the road. It's the 136, so a 6-speed manual diesel engine, which again, I'm not going to go into the EcoBlue engine. There's a whole nother topic altogether on that. These vans have served us very well in the previous shape. We're massive fans of them here, and I think this is a really nice step forward. And then one final thing, of course, to mention, which is going to be very, very important to, of course, a lot of people, anyone that's buying one of these, is the price. So things have moved on greatly in terms of price, not just on these, but on any van, anything really. Houses are different prices now, food, all the rest of it. It's big news, of course. The price on these. So at the time of recording, so we are middle of April 2024, at the time I'm making this video, a kitted one of these vans, there's not going to be many on the market, but one of these with a full kit on it, wheels lowered, leather interior, you're looking at about 40 grand plus the VAT for a kitted one. Without the kit, you can probably take 4 or 5 grand off that, so you're looking 35-ish, something like that. Maybe there's a deal out there for a fleet customer, I'm not sure, but it's going to be in that sort of bracket. And if we go back in time to when these vans initially came out, of course the prices were lower. And then these now on the used market, of course you can go onto our website and see some of the used examples that we've got with full kits on. Of course there is going to be a price difference between the two models, which is natural, but of course it's something to bear in mind. I'm sure there's going to be some attractive finance packages and things like that, so you're not going greatly up in monthly cost from your old van, but it's going to be more expensive. It's just unfortunately fact of life. It's part of the economy. Things get more expensive, new models get more expensive. That is it's unavoidable, unfortunately. But in terms of figures, those are what you're going to be talking about. Certainly at the time being, it's going to be something starting with a 3 mid to high 30s, depending on spec, kit, body, styling, all that type of thing. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this comparison video. If there's more content that you'd like to see on the new Shape Custom, or maybe this type of video on the old Shape Custom, or maybe a different model, by all means leave a comment down below. It's not the usual type of video that we do, but hopefully it's something that you will find useful. And the reason I've made it is I'm not seeing much of this type of content out there from people like myself who have got quite a bit of experience with the old ones and given their thoughts on the new Shape. The content seems to be quite limited, pardon the pun, on the new Ford Transit Custom. But if you do want to see more of this type of content, please by all means let me know down in the description. We may actually be able to supply these vans as well, so brand new with body kits as well. So if you are interested in looking at some options on a new one, by all means get in touch and we may be able to help you out there. Again, thank you very much for watching.